morning.
I've had a little bit of bumps and kicks last weekend, moving everything from one storage unit to another, which is just like,
It's hard labor.
it's just to me the dumbest thing.
Hey, but
And I don't like that I had to do that, but it was time to get out of the old city from 3 years ago and into where I'm currently staying. And here we are.
And now she has all these new
Broken down bodies. Thank you to my brother-in-law who helped last minute. Thank you to your husband who helped load.
Yep.
And my nephews because they were a huge help. They love carrying heavy things and pushing stuff like they're working out. So that was fun.
And using the little trolley cars is
Oh yeah, the trolley
race
cars.
cars.
Yeah,
Also.
they're playing on the trolley cars. But at 40 years old, now I understand why people pay $2,000 to just have other people move their stuff because
It was rough.
that was mad light labor. I give it to you people out there who do this for a living, move people's stuff around. Like that was hard. I don't ever want to go through that again. Like my next move, I want to be permanent.
Yes, ma'am.
But all right. And then we came back and we spent the whole weekend together. It's been such a blessing to have you here, Laura.
Thanks. I love hanging out with
We
you.
built my mom a garden oasis out back, and she'll get home later today and either love it or hate it.
She's gonna love it.
They didn't ask for permission, and my mom's not one who likes change without a heads up. But we call those surprises.
And life is full of them.
And life is full of them. But I think she'll love it. And if she doesn't, I'm just going to move it to the back of the yard where my hammock is hanging, and I'll just put it back there.
Or you can take it to our house.
Or I'll take it to your house and never use it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got beautiful flowers for her. I prefer ferns, but apparently those die in direct sunlight, so we're not getting ferns.
But you have so many in here that are so pretty. I guess they're not. Are they ferns? They're just different.
Yeah, the window and wall behind the computer is just full of plants. All my
It's gorgeous.
My beautiful plant stand. It gives me something pretty to look at all day while I'm working right from here. So, all right. Any announcements do we need to make? We have 2 chapters left on this.
So, I mean, if they're just wanting to know what we're up to, we have Louise in 3 weeks, and
yeah,
we'll probably be reporting back on that once we're home.
Absolutely.
Recording on the podcast. And then we have the beach trip coming up in August, our retreat. So,
and we'll post videos and stuff while we're in Belize and kind of show you what we do, the mission work that we do while we're there. I think we have 4 professional development classes planned for once the teachers get out of schools or school gets out. And then Friday, the last day that we're there, we're going to do baptism. So we're super excited about that. That makes me even want to cry.
Jess is giving her testimony.
Well, I'll share parts of my testimony probably, but
a little bit of a worship service, and her aunt's going to speak. And so if you're following us and you're praying, if you could pray for hearts of teenagers and teachers and everybody who attends.
And parents, a lot of the parents, we need the parents to be on board. A lot of the abuse, the trauma is coming from the home. A lot of the kids that are dropping out of school is because of just having a rough home life, and they need to be there to support their family and to work with them. And so they can't really afford to go to school, or the stress of the home life really negatively impacts their ability to stay in school. And so our goal is to get down there, to start looking for properties, to find something that we can afford to fundraise for.
Yeah, and I was going to say, maybe talk a little bit about the community center and the documentary and what you're doing.
So the community center, our goal essentially is to build a community center, a safe haven, so to speak, for children to come to after school if they don't have homes to go home to, or just parents that aren't at home and they need extra help with their schoolwork and learning. We want to have a safe community where we can bring in kids that have graduated and are older, but don't have anywhere else to go, but they want to continue to educate and learn. And so we want to bring them in, help teach them how to sort of run the community center. So when we're not there, it's still up and running and they still have a safe haven. But that takes a lot of money. So we're doing a fundraiser. I do have a GoFundMe page started for that. I essentially was asked if I wanted to be a part of a documentary series called Women in Power. And the only reason why I even want to do a documentary is so we can help people understand how pressing it is, how important it is to get involved with these organizations that are going around and helping people. There's a lot of them out there. You don't have to just support ours, but find one that you resonate with, something that speaks to your heart, your inner child, so to speak. And when your inner child reacts to a mission, this is hard work. You sacrifice time from your family, from work. You go out there, it's 110 degrees, it's hot. And it's teaching you how to be generous. It helps you see outside of yourself. You see the world in a whole different way. You become a part of something much bigger than yourself. And I think in our culture, especially in America, our world is just us. We get so sucked into the social media. What about me? Look what I'm doing. Look what I'm doing. And we just want to provide a way for other people to say, I want to be a part of something bigger. I want to take what I'm good at, what's my identity, my authenticity, and I want to give, and I want to contribute to organizations that are out there doing hard work. So we will be going there in June for, I don't know, like 10 days, 8 days or something, a little bit longer than a week. Um, and we're going to start getting some feedback from the locals of what would be helpful. I had one lady reach out to me via Instagram and just in anguish, crying, trying to understand how she can help the women in her community. It's not like it is here. You don't break up with somebody and have another place to go. Like that is your home. And when you have a relationship that's abusive, they don't have shelters you can go to. They have very few resources for community like outreach, for social welfare, basically. And so our goal is to go down there and build as many of these community centers as we can to give people a safe haven, a safe place to come to, and to learn about the love of God, because that's where a lot of the healing comes from, is our faith.
That's the missing piece from what I've observed in a lot of these children who are coming to messaging me, and the women who are messaging me, and they're just, I would say, I mean, our teachers and our adult friends understand because it's a faith-based community, but a lot of the teenagers are still in that space of who am I? Mm-hmm. And they haven't really grasped the fact that Jesus is the answer. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's, one of my biggest prayers for the service and the cookout and things that we're doing at the end of the week is that they will come to find that. And so over the course of that week, spending some time with them.
And it's just really showing them that unconditional love. The gospel calls us to love God and love people. Mm-hmm. And we love God. There's no question there. This is just a really amazing way to learn how to love people. Mm-hmm. So if you want to join us, we're always looking for volunteers. You're always welcome to reach out. Let us know what you're interested in, what you're good at. I do mental health training. I work one-on-one, and I'll sit down and just have conversations with the students and with the teachers, and just teaching them ways how to, de-escalate things in the classroom, or not try to fix the child's emotions and their outbursts, but like how to just communicate with them and reflect back. But that takes them going to the dark place within themselves. I've been talking a lot this past week with people about this word empathy. And empathy is a skill that is learned over time. It is a requirement to be able to go to the emotional state of which the person that we're trying to be empathetic towards is at. And this isn't just negative emotions. This is positive emotions. We're real good at laughing with people. Laughter, sharing an excitement, that's empathy. You're going to a place where you can, some people don't have happy experiences. Yeah. And it's really hard for them to share in the joy of others because they don't know what that's like. So empathy is literally being able to go within yourself to the emotional state of which the person across from you is at, and not trying to fix it or change it, but saying, I understand that feeling. and I'm going to be here with you, and we're going to get through this together. I'm not going to try to change it. I'm not going to try to tell you what to do or how to do it or how to come out of that place. It's I remember a time when I was there, and so I'm going to be here for you through this. Compassion is an action word. So empathy draws us in. Pity sometimes draws us in. Sympathy can draw us in. But those are what, according to Brene Brown, she calls those near enemies. Because pity says, oh, I feel sorry for you, but I'm glad that's not me.
Mm.
Compassion is when you feel those feelings and you are drawn in and encouraged, or I want to say just like nudged, poked
Yeah.
to take action. Compassion is an
Empathy.
action word. It's an actionable feeling. I have compassion for somebody. When we feel compassion, we do something about it.
Right.
We give, we volunteer, we go help, we ask what help you need. Compassion is what draws us to action. So, keeping those things in mind, ask yourself what you're compassionate about. What makes you want to do something to help others, to contribute back to the world in a bigger way, your community, your local community. A lot of my volunteer stuff started in the local community. I did this for about 10, like the past 10 years, just volunteering at different nonprofit organizations and getting to know different ins and outs of how to run those organizations, which is why I essentially started Shattered into One. And so, us doing fundraising and trying to, I guess, let the world know, help people understand like what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it. But if you ever get a chance to come on a mission trip with us, your world will be rocked. It'll be changed for sure. So
Your heart will grow. It's
she's been there
impactful.
much longer than me. I'm just bringing the mental health stuff side of it in, but
You were there before me
I
though.
was there before you.
Her 15, me 19, but ever since then, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And that's where God just said, this is going to be your life's work, and that this is where my compassion is.
And I'll tell you, going at 15 was probably the best thing that ever happened for me, because at 16, life took a dark turn for me. Things just got very, very difficult peer wise and at school, and things were just emotionally a lot of unresolved trauma and childhood trauma and stuff started to surface and come up. So I had to learn how to be compassionate. I've always been a very compassionate person. I'll do anything for anybody if you ask,
Sure,
but
you will.
I'll be there. So this week we'll transition into, and then in August, we're also still doing the women's retreat. So if you are interested in coming to Holden Beach, North Carolina for a week, we're going to do some cool stuff there and just fellowship. I guess mostly a lot of it's just going to be fellowship with each other.
We have some ideas like vision boards and
Well, we're going to have activities
yeah.
planned, and we're going to be meal prepping, and you'll have the beach and the pool and everything to, it's supposed to be just a week of relaxation. And what better way to do that than with a bunch of God-fearing women
Yeah.
who you can relate to, because we're all a little bit crazy in our own way.
Exactly. This beach house, I mean, I know I've talked about it before, but lots of comfy places to sit, rocking chairs and couches. And I mean, there's something for everyone to do. I brought my record player. I was being real retro. We were just there, my husband and I, about a week ago. And there's something about opening that patio door on the second level and then just blasting my records. And
I'm sure everybody in the neighborhood loved that. My neighbors seem to think that everybody likes to listen to their music too.
yeah. I mean, over the ocean though, I can't really hear it.
Yeah, that's much nicer. If we had the ocean in the backyard, I probably wouldn't care as much. All right. So if you're interested in that, shoot us a message, let us know. And then if you are interested in doing a mission trip, we go twice a year. We go once in the summer and once in the winter. Probably starting soon, I'll be going down there for a few months at a time, depending on, once we get the community center, I'll be down there for extended periods of time. So yeah, that's what we're up to. So
Come stay with
would
us.
love your support. You can also, if you don't want to do the GoFundMe page, you can go to shatteredinto1.com. That's my website for like kind of shows everything that we're doing. The podcast is there. What we're doing in Belize is there. All of our upcoming events and stuff are listed there. My blog is on there. Just a couple of blurbs about like why I started this and kind of my history and what God has really redeemed me and pulled me out of. I've said it a million times. You can get help and you can recover, but it is so much more fulfilling and long lasting when you do it with the Lord and you let Him show you the love that really you're deeply craving and desiring. Because those of us who have been abused tend to reject love. We tend to push it away. We tend to sabotage it. And until you actually experience unconditional love, which I just learned comes from dogs. So, dogs, well, according to a brain scan, having a pet dog lights up a part of your brain that is unconditional love, which is why we have worse experiences with losing a dog than we do with people, which
Mhm.
was definitely the case in my situation. And I couldn't understand it. But knowing that, it makes me think about how devastated Jesus was when he died on the cross. And it makes me love him even more
Mhm.
to know that that's the pain that he felt.
Yeah.
And that's the pain he feels every single time he loses somebody to the enemy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't know that was going to make me cry, but it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, moving on, we are going to talk about growing into an emotionally mature adult today, learning new skills to love well. This is my favorite chapter, probably because it's like the one that punches you right in the gut.
Yeah.
Just to start, he kind of talks about love in practice is a harsh and dreadful thing compared to love in dreams. Loving well is the goal of the Christian life. This is easier in our dreams than in practice. It requires that we grow into emotional adulthood in Christ, the rewards of which are rich beyond measure. And I would say that's definitely true for me in my situation. But
Yeah. Same, honestly. And I think that's one of those things too. That hard work is always worth doing, but especially when it's the Lord's work, it's probably the most challenging things that you'll ever be asked to do. But if you're obedient, the reward is just you don't know what's coming. Like you can't imagine the fulfillment you get from that internally.
yeah. So, questions. How can I be quick to hear and slow to speak?
That's real hard for someone who has struggled with ADHD for her whole life. But I think you just it's an active practice. It's just like you're developing the skill to be empathetic, you're developing the skill to listen. And
Active listening.
active listening, learning to even practice in the morning meditation, just even that 2 minutes, that 5 minutes of just don't even pray, just meditate, just listen for God, listen for what's around you, and develop that intuition.
So, what the Lord taught me was you don't answer first. So, going to group therapy, one of the reasons why group therapy is so effective is because you have to practice these skills.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, the group facilitator will introduce them and will help remind you what they are and how to engage in them. But when I used to go to groups, so this is before I became started my master's program to become a counselor. The Lord has been teaching me how to be a counselor for about 10 years prior to starting counseling.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things that he told me was when you're in a group setting, you're the last one to speak. If you want to be the first person to say something, you have to train yourself to be the last person. So you wait, you let everybody else do their thing. What that does is it rewires your nervous system.
Yeah.
You're learning to control the impulse. Your impulse is to speak up, your impulse is to interrupt, your impulse is to be first and to be heard. Especially if you've been traumatized and you feel like you've never been heard. Nobody ever hears me. I never get a chance to speak. So you want to be the first person. So, a really good rule of thumb, which I don't like that term after watching the Boondock Saints and figuring out what that really means, but what I would suggest or recommend is anytime you're in any situation, any conversation that's a crucial conversation, things are getting escalated, you're having a little bit more negative emotions presenting, you start to feel your body changing. Becoming aware of what's going on in your body is the first inclination. That's the first sign that you want to start or skill that you want to develop. Like, ooh, I just felt a tightness in my chest when you said that. Now I have an awareness of this instead of being like, oh, you just pissed me off. No, they didn't.
Mhm.
You are reacting to your own story in your own mind based upon what other people say all the time.
Yeah.
And unless you're asking clarifying questions, you are responding to them according to your own delusional world that you're living in. This is the all about me. And we all do it. I do it. I still do it with my mother, and I'm 40 years old, and I feel like I'm a 5-year-old child whenever she talks to me. So that is what I'm here and really practicing and learning how to overcome, because she is the most patient person in the world. But God told me, He said, every time you want to say something before you do, take a deep breath.
Mhm.
You will calm down immediately. So if you want to snap back at somebody, if they're screaming at you, another thing you can do is count backwards from 5.
Mhm.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's things happening in your brain that you don't understand. You just got to trust the process. The more you practice doing this, the more you'll start to realize how your responses to certain people and certain situations change. You need to be practicing this like as much as you possibly can, but a lot of that is seeking help to get out of that situation. With narcissists and emotionally, verbally, or physically abusive people, it's not about understanding. You're not going to
Mhm.
understand. It doesn't make sense. Like, I will validate that for you now. It
Mhm.
doesn't, there's no logical anything to this. It is a power trip, it is control, it's manipulation. And the only way you can stop that from infiltrating you is by having no response or a one worded response. The only time it is appropriate to say, I'm sorry you feel that way, is when you're dealing with somebody who's a narcissist, who's just making everything about themselves. You know, if they said something that hurt your feelings and now they want to talk about their hurt feelings, that's when you're just like, I'm really sorry you feel that way. Because there's
Mhm.
nothing else that you can say or do that's going to make them feel any better. Like, all they want is to get a reaction out of you because that's what makes them feel more powerful. This is a very deep rooted state of emotional immaturity. So, if we could stop throwing the narcissist word around, that would be great, because we all struggle with narcissism. We are born with it. It's your ego, it's pride.
Mhm.
That's all narcissism is uncontrollable pride. And we all have prideful moments. So to go around labeling everybody a narcissist is like going around calling everybody, a butthead, or you're a jerk, or she's a bitch, or whatever. Like,
Mhm.
it's not helpful. And it victimizes you further. It keeps you stuck in that victim mentality. So stay away from the labels. If you are not a professional who's treating somebody with narcissistic personality disorder, stop calling people narcissists. You don't know. And this is the list of things we're going to talk about, because people who are narcissists struggle with these as well. They're in a very deep seated, emotionally immature place, and they don't know how to regulate their feelings. They don't know how to see outside of themselves. To me, dealing with a narcissist is no different than dealing with somebody who might have autism or some other severely cognitive mental disorder or cancer. Like, they can't help it. They don't know any better. They literally don't know any better. This is how they were raised. It is completely, to me, being consumed by the enemy, who is the prince of pride, and it's demonic. It's very dark. So the only way you can fight demons is with the word of God. So if you're not in the word of God and you're not using scripture to try to defeat the person who seems to be the narcissist in your life, you're just going to waste your energy, and it's going to tear you apart. It literally is going to destroy your brain. So, learning to speak God's truth over that. I refuse to believe that. We see this differently. I remember things differently. That is what prevents your brain from creating this new cognitive pathway to the delusional story of whoever this person is that's telling you it. So, just be aware of that. Stay away from the labels. Just stop. So, we're going to talk a little bit about emotional infants, emotional children, emotional adolescents, and then what emotional adults are. So Jesus preached great messages to the multitudes, yet he knew that would not be enough for people who truly get it. So he chose 12 disciples with whom he lived day and night for 3 years. He modeled how his teaching worked out practically, He had them practice, he supervised, he imparted power. Jesus knew inspiration was not enough. I have spent all of my adult life giving inspiring sermons about God's heart for us to love people. I have preached messages about how Jesus saw each human being as infinitely precious and a treasure in God's sight. I have quoted Mother Teresa of Calcutta's inspiring quote about loving one person at a time, and Thomas Merton's revelation that people were walking around shining like the sun. But I have found that telling people to love better and more is not enough. They need practical skills incorporated into their spiritual formation to grow out of emotional infancy into emotional adulthood. It is easy to grow physically into a chronological adult. It is quite another to grow into an emotional adult. Many people may be chronologically 45 years old but remain an emotional infant, child, or adolescent. The question is, how do I distinguish between them? And here is a brief summary of each. So I'm going to read this list off. If you have stories that pop up that make you think of it, that remind you of something that you've been through, that you've responded in that way, we're going to talk about that because it's always, I love narratives are our best way to connect with each other. Because I think we all probably fluctuate a little bit between each of these, depending on the circumstance, the person, the context of which you find yourself. So listen up, emotional infants. Do you look for others to take care of you? What does that mean to you in an adult life? What would be an emotional example of looking to others to take care of you?
I would say that I think this is probably, just in my own residence, and it's me and my own husband. And when there's a time when I don't want to just get up and do something and I ask him to do it, he's always willing, but there's no reason why I can't.
Well, that's different.
Okay, well,
But that's a great attempt.
thank you.
That's called asking for help when you don't want to get up and do things and if somebody's doing it. Looking for others to take care of us is when I don't want to work, so I need you to,
Okay.
you have to work so I can do this. I don't want to cook my own meals, so you have to cook so I don't have to. I don't know how to clean up after myself. I just expect my partner to clean up after me. Like you're looking for somebody to be your mother or your father, like your parent, really the mother, because dads don't really do this, but whether you're a male or a female, when you're looking for others to take care of you, that's emotional infancy. Infants depend on their parents, their caregivers to take care of them. So be aware of when you're behaving or acting in those ways. Having a great difficulty entering into the world of others. This goes back to that lack of empathy. So,
Yeah, I think that depending on the situation or depending on the person, it's hard for me just because, and I have to check my child trauma, right? Because I can often find myself in a place of defensiveness, which I think is the next stage, which is childlike. But I definitely have to really focus on listening. That's my hardest challenge right now, is to just really hear what and be empathetic and kind, and to deactivate that fight or flight in me.
yeah.
That's what that tantrum almost wants to happen, and I have to stop it.
And I'd say that goes into the child and adolescent.
Yeah, it does.
So, having a great difficulty entering into the world of others. This is like engaging in activities that other people enjoy doing, leaving your house, going someplace that's unfamiliar. These are all signs of emotional infancy. The third one is are driven by need for instant gratification.
So I'm pulling a parallel, if I can, for a second, for early childhood curriculum. And this is talking about egocentrism to sociocentrism. And when you're a baby, your whole world is you, and it's all about who's going to feed me, change me, comfort me all day long. And then you reach an age where you're starting to realize you have autonomy, but you still don't know that your actions affect other people. And that's when we can walk, crawl, interact. And as a former toddler teacher, I remember this so clearly when two babies would one would walk up to the other, bump into each other, whatever, and they would just stare at each other like, Like they don't
What
even
do
know
I
how to
do
react
now? What do I
because
do?
yeah, and then one would start crying and the other one would stare,
Yeah.
and that's that moment where they're realizing that did I cause that? And they're so confused, and then the other one starts crying. So now we have two egocentric
That's
babies.
empathy.
Uh-huh. That's where it's
That's
developing.
empathy
But that's
and
where
sharing in that emotion with you.
right, well, and I think sometimes it was we were mad about the same thing, but
That's still empathy. Empathy is a shared emotion.
okay.
That is when you step into that emotion with that person, you feel it yourself and you're like, "Yes, okay. I would be angry about this too. I am getting angry about this."
I
Like
feel all the things.
that's the
So,
empathy.
yeah, and I think that's here's the
The
medical
beginning stages of it, I guess, like learning.
true. Yeah, and that's where we would have to come in and explain, this is how conflict resolution works, but not to get us off track, but that's what it's reminding me of.
Yeah, for sure. There's a video we had of us when we were kids. I must have been 3, maybe. Crystal maybe was 4. And then my cousin Jocelyn was also, we were at my Aunt Nancy and Uncle Matt's house. And we are all playing outside. And my cousin Jocelyn had a shovel. And like we were in the garden or dirt, whatever. But it was like a little kid's plastic shovel.
Mhm.
And I'm bent over doing something, and she hit me in the head with the shovel on accident. Like it wasn't like she was on purpose, but we're kids and you're flailing around.
Right.
But she hit me in the head on purpose, and I looked up at her and I said, "I sorry." Like my head got in your way. Like, but it's just like those are the innocent things. It's like, if somebody bumps into you, I think that's why a lot of times people are like, "Oh, sorry, sorry, sorry,
Mhm.
sorry." And like saying I'm sorry is like ingrained in us, even
Yeah.
when we're not sorry. Like, why am I apologizing for being in the same shared space as you?
Right.
It is
Right.
a polite thing to do. But there are some people that over apologize for everything. And so it's becoming aware of those. Like, but, anyways, getting back to driven need for instant gratification. In adulthood, this is happening a lot these days.
Yeah.
I can't say no to something. I have to buy it immediately. The internet doesn't help. Impulse, 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 instant gratification. I can't wait for that. I can't wait to have this conversation later. I need to be instantly gratified. We're going to talk about this right now. When the other person's like, I need a minute. I need to think about this and to walk away. No, you're just da da da. That's your emotional infancy.
Mhm.
And this goes back to why it's so important because you can't go back. So another thing that I learned with neuroscience is once your brain develops past a certain stage and you do not learn acquired skills, you will never learn those skills.
Okay. Yep. Yep. That's like same with the window of early childhood development.
Yes. And this
After
is in early
18.
childhood. So kids that are neglected are not held. Babies that don't get that, they develop what's known as RAD, um,
Which is what?
reactive adverse. Shoot, what is it? RAD
Dependency?
disorder, a
Okay.
reactive adverse disorder, or something. Um, I can't remember what the letters stand for, but they are children and people who never want to be touched.
Mhm.
So you can't comfort. Usually, like, this is a comforting thing. This is consoling. Like, you touch
Mhm.
them, you hug them. Children that never get that, this is like the one sense we can't live without, remember, is touch.
Yeah.
So when you're abused, touch becomes dangerous because it's
Mhm.
being used in a non
In a
in a
violent
violent
way.
way.
Right.
Yeah. So babies in their first 18 months of life, they'll develop RAD, which is they don't develop trust. This is trust versus mistrust. So now they grow up not trusting. They don't know how to trust themselves. They don't know how to trust their senses. They don't know how to trust anything.
Yeah.
So they're very like oppositional. They scream.
Because everything's a threat.
Everything is a threat.
Mhm.
And so when you see people like that, it's not oh, something's wrong with you, you're crazy. Compassion should drive, or empathy should drive you to being like, whoa, I'm so sorry. Like I did not understand like that I was having that kind of an impact on you. Like that's what can I do to change this? How can I say this differently? What can I do differently? And that helps them start to fix those parts of their brain that hadn't developed properly. Um,
And I also think about it too as I think I got to a point once I went through some of my really hard stuff and I reemerged on the other side because I was that person who I was just in such a state of fight or flight and I was so terrified. I couldn't even go to the grocery store at one point because I was so afraid of running into people I was fearful of. And um, I just remember thinking, if I once I can get past that, and I did, that whenever I encounter people who are also in that place, that if you can see past the offense, if you can see past whatever it is that just happened and identify with the emotion, empathize with that, you can get to a place where you're just like, I can see that somewhere along the line, someone really hurt you or something has happened. And like, I don't want to make that worse. So can you let me know a little bit about what you're feeling or what happened? And like I'll actively try not to do that again, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that that really helped me to develop. I mean, and I work in a tough industry, and I've met a few people like that who are just they're so on guard all the time. And now I'm just like instead of being like, "What's your problem?" Like now I'm like, "Okay, I've felt that, and I want to respect you. So let me know what I can do." You know.
And that's a great point because everything that you just described and you're talking about, the letting go of the offense,
Hmm.
that's what forgiveness is. That's literally what forgiveness is.
Yeah.
And if you haven't forgiven, how do you let go of an offense?
Right.
If I don't forgive people, like this is why forgiveness is a gift to ourselves. It's a gift to others as well, but it's also a gift for us. And I don't need somebody to receive my forgiveness in order for me to forgive. I'm choosing to let go of the offense. That hurt
Hmm.
me. I identified the feeling like that was painful. I felt this way. I have my emotions wheel on the wall over here. So if I go to anger, I felt threatened, which goes back to what is my need? I need safety. How do I ask for safety? What is a specific thing I can now request that says, "Hey, next time we talk about something like this, can you pay attention to when you're starting to get escalated or your temperature's rising and you're yelling?
Yeah.
Can we just take a break and like walk away from this for a minute and then we'll come back and talk about it later?" But be specific about that. Let's come back in 30 minutes. Let's take a 15-minute break. I'm going to go for a walk, go do something that is distracting or helps you cool off, that's relaxing. But make a plan for it. And this is the biggest issue when you're in a partnership with an introvert, if you're an extrovert, and vice versa, is introverts want to pull away typically from an argument or
Hmm.
conflict.
Yeah.
And they want to get in their own head and process and process and process slowly and methodically because that's what introverts do.
That's me.
Extroverts are like, let's talk this out loud right now because that's what's going to help me. Well, those are oppositions. So which way do you go? How do you choose to do? To me, if the introvert has to think by themselves before they can have the conversation, then you need to let the introvert do that as the extrovert. And you need to figure out how to regulate your own emotions while they're processing instead of trying to control them and make them do something that you are uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen negatively if you both walk away from that argument. Like the extrovert's not going to implode, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's no problem there. But the introvert that's forced into having a conversation that they're not ready to have is going to build resentment and fear. And that's not what you're trying to resolve conflict for. So walk away, cool off, let them process on their own. When they come back together, they're going to have their thoughts gathered together. Otherwise, us extroverts, we can talk people into anything and everything
Hmm.
because we'll have them tripping over their words. We'll have them thinking about something in left field because we're bringing everything out loud together to try to process. So give them time and space to think through and do this methodically. Write things down, journal. I remember fighting with my ex got so bad, I would pull out a notepad and I'm like, okay, let's have this conversation. He's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I need to take notes because a lot of times we go off on tangents and I'm not really following. And then I forget what you're actually mad about. And then it's like all these different things. So I'm trying to just make things sequential. Like I'm trying to stay on topic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he'd get so mad at me. Well, then we're not even going to talk about this. I can't believe you're going to write stuff down. You don't trust me. You don't this, you don't that. And that's where it's like when somebody starts reacting to your need, your emotional need in such an ugly and angry and violent way, that should tell you a sign about them.
Hmm.
Just
Hmm.
saying.
Hmm.
So, um, emotional infants look for others to take care of them. They have great difficulty entering into the world of others. They're driven by a need for instant gratification, and they use others as objects to meet their needs. So, to me, if you are a narcissist, narcissistic personality disorder, you are stuck in this place of emotional infancy, and your trust versus mistrust was never developed. And I'm telling you right now, everybody, psychologists, they all say it like once this the neuroscience scientists, whatever they're called, I don't know what they're called, but neuroscientists, when they say that once your brain develops past this point, you're never going to trust again. I think they genuinely understand that that's truthful.
Yeah.
However, we have a God who is so mighty and powerful, and he can achieve and do anything. And I'm telling you, when you build trust with God, he restores that part of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So it can happen, but it takes faith and understanding something that is not tangible. Like this is the supernatural we're talking about here. Um, and this is what God walked me through because I didn't trust anybody for a long time. Like I trusted everybody until they gave me a reason not to. And that just burned me and burned me and burned me over and over again. And people just used me and abused me and took advantage of me. And here I am thinking, like, wow, I have all of these great friendships. But the moment I stop providing or giving or doing for that person, all of a sudden we're not friends anymore. And I'm being called selfish and I'm being called whatever. So I had to get alone. I think I was in solitude for about a year. I moved back home and I didn't really interact with anybody except for my family. And God literally put me through very distinct experiences and situations that I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. And I would have to work through the anxiety and the panic of that until he showed up every single time in little ways, little tiny things. But I was listening for that and I was watching for that because I was like, God, if you're real, prove it. Like I'm testing it. But I had to step into it. It wasn't, I'll believe in you once you show me. It was, I'm surrendering to you out of complete faith.
Mm-hmm.
And one, I was at a place where I didn't care if I lived or died anymore at that point. So I was like, well, if you're real, prove it, show me. And it was then you have to be obedient. When I say go, you go. When I say stay, you stay. And I was like, okay, and these are just like opportunities that come up. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to try to force this to happen. If it's meant to happen, I trust you, Lord. I trust that that's where I'm supposed to be. And he healed my heart and my head heart connection in ways that books cannot do for you. Conversations cannot, relationships cannot do. They're all a part of it. But the root of this, the deep seated root of this is your one-on-one personal relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And without that, I would say, yeah, it probably is a hopeless case. Because to me, that's where hope comes from. And your brain is going to do what your brain is designed to do. And we cannot do the supernatural. We can only do the natural. And we can rewire our brains. Dr. Caroline Leaf will read into some of her stuff about the renewing of your mind and the rewiring of your brain. Mind over matter. I was listening to a video earlier with this girl was talking about like how narcissistic abuse literally changes your brain. Anything changes your brain. Our brains are constantly changing. It's neuroplasticity, right? So any new thought that comes in, whether it's from a podcast I'm listening to, like this, or a TV show I'm watching, or music I'm listening to, our brains are slowly changing the connections that are in there. The neurotransmitters, the cognitive connections. What are those called?
Synapses.
The
Right?
synapses, maybe. Um, Regardless of any of that jargon, your brain has the ability to create new thoughts, but it takes consistent. So if I'm doing the same thing over and over and over, it's forming a habit. And then I don't have to think about it. My body and brain automatically do it. Um, so if you have negative stuff constantly coming in, you have to be the person who's bringing in the positive input that supersedes and overcomes the negative. And then you have to stop giving energy back to the negative.
Yeah.
And you just have to remind, okay, there we go. Once again, I'm feeling like like here I am. I'm the disappointment, or I'm the burden, or I'm the terrible person, and I'm such a this, or whatever your negative thought is, and saying, stop. That was true maybe in the past, but it's not true anymore.
Mhm.
The Lord says that I am worthy. I am beloved. I am
Mhm.
a child of God.
Mhm.
Those are the truths. Like you've got to get into the word, the Bible, and ask God, show me the truth to this situation, to this negative thought. And then every time that thought comes, you say, no, this is what the word says. This
Yeah.
is what the Lord says. And as you do that, He's supernaturally adjusting what's going on inside your mind and your brain and how your brain functions.
I remember specifically one time, I think this is also, if part of that consistency is that prayer meditation every day and just listening. And if you develop that habit and you're able to just hear God before you're asking for anything or you're lamenting about what is happening. I remember being on my kitchen floor. This was several years ago, and I had been denied my promotion for the second time over a technicality. And I thought out loud, I was said, why is no one at my job proud of me? And I
Mhm.
heard in my head, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And that was the instant download, and that it spoke, it was gentle, but it was also loud. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's something that's just that changed the course of how I conducted myself. I went back to work the next day and I was like, that's all I need. That's
Yeah.
all I need is for God to be proud of me. I don't need the approval of these people to know that I'm good at what I'm doing. Um
That's that validation. When you're seeking validation anywhere other than from the Lord, you're doing it for your ego,
yeah,
for self-centered purposes.
and it's going to eventually come crashing down. It may be great at first, but it's temporary,
Mhm.
and it's toxic. And I think that was the thing, and I also just recognize that where adversity exists, if you're following for Jesus, which he tells you it's going to be hard, but at the same time, then he can say, okay, or you could go this way and just observe these people and see how they're conducting themselves and what their life is like. And I almost, not almost, I'm fully in. I choose you, Jesus, because I know it's hard, but I know at the end of the day that I'm going to find peace.
Yeah, I love that. All right, moving into emotional children. So if you don't do those four things, which maybe we kind of do every once in a while, if it's just temporary, like situational, I wouldn't be too concerned about it. But if this is happening like all the time in all your relationships, like that's when we gotta look deeper inside the emotional part of it. And I would say, look at the relationship of which whom you're doing this with. Like, who's
Mm-hmm.
the person that you tend to be more of an emotional infant around?
Mm-hmm.
That will give you a clear indication of where this wound is that's been unresolved and you haven't healed from that and you haven't forgiven or let that go yet. So, emotional children are content and happy as long as they receive what they want. They unravel quickly from stress, disappointments, and trials. They interpret disagreements as personal offenses. They are easily hurt. They complain, withdraw, manipulate, take revenge, become sarcastic when they don't get their way. Sarcasm. And they have a great difficulty calmly discussing their needs and wants in a mature and loving way. These are probably most of the clients that I work with. When people come into therapy, they're stuck in this emotional childlike mentality. The infants aren't coming into therapy. Why? Why don't you think?
Because no one's bringing them there. They can't walk yet.
Because nothing's wrong with them. The world
Oh,
revolves around me. I'm doing everything just fine. My world works for me.
yeah,
Even though it's destroying and maybe destructive to everybody around me, it works for me. I'm great.
yeah.
So typically they're not coming in. And if they do, it's because it's core ordered or
Mm-hmm.
they're afraid of losing the thing that's their instant gratification. Nothing's going to change. Um, Emotional children, they come to therapy a lot. And so it's having those conversations about, okay, how can we, and this is when I always talk about nonviolent communication, like what's objectively happening, not your interpretation, not your perception, just what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
If you cannot look at situations objectively, your interpretation will always trip you up. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes your interpretation is correct. So I'm not saying that this is always, But in order to resolve conflict, you have to look at things objectively because they'll see it objectively. Like, you slammed the door. No, I didn't. You slammed the door is my interpretation. Hey, when you came home, the door shut really loudly. That's objective.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, I tripped over the thing. I dropped my keys and the wind slammed it shut behind me. But if I say, hey, you slammed the door when you came home, what's wrong with you? They're going to get defensive immediately. Like, I did. I dropped my keys. The door slammed behind me. The wind shut it. Like, oh my gosh, what just
It
happened?
was just a crazy, it sounds like my life.
So if I say, hey, when I heard the door slam, I felt scared immediately, like something was going on. And it made me wonder if
Yeah.
like, is everything okay? Oh, yeah, I just came in and dropped my keys and the wind cut the door and slammed it.
Mhm.
Now there's no defensiveness. There's no accusations. There's no, I'm saying this is how I felt when I heard this thing happen, this objective thing go on.
Mhm.
And then I'm looking at what the need is. I felt scared. I'm needing an explanation to understand why the door slammed. Does
There's
that make sense?
It does, and I'm sorry that my monkey brain is like, there's a TikTok that has a guy that's walking to an apartment and the lights are off and he's like, baby, drop them, unlock the door, lock the door and drop the lights down low. And he's like, come back or I'll just stub my toe. It makes me laugh because he's tripping all over everything. And that's what it reminds me of. And there's been so many times in my life where um, I have just completely misjudged the situation and I never should have judged it to begin with. And that's why it's so important to ask that question because most of the time people are like, no, like here's what happened, but it was a loud noise, but it wasn't meant to harm you, it
Hmm.
just happened.
Yeah. And if you have PTSD, I mean, those things are going to trigger you, but you're responsible for your triggers, not everybody else. Nobody wants to walk on eggshells all the time around you because you might pop off at something. Now, it's understandable if you do, but taking responsibility for it is how you heal that,
Yeah.
how you stay into connection with those people or like with your friends and family members or coworkers. Um, but so are happy and content as long as they receive what they want. You need to figure out how to be happy and content even when you're not getting your way.
Mm-hmm.
Anger is rooted in I'm not getting my way. So anytime you're feeling angry, ask yourself, am I just angry because I'm not getting my way right now? And 99% of the time, the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time I went into a bowling alley and I brought my water bottle with me, my shaker bottle. And she's like, you can't have that in here. And I was like, tell me I can't have a water bottle in a pool hall. Like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so stupid. Like, it's just water. And she's like, yeah, but people bring in alcoholic beverages all the time and we can't be sure it's water. So it's just company policy. You're not allowed to have it. I'm like, this is so stupid. I just want my stinking water bottle. And I'm like pouting,
Mm-hmm.
turning into an emotional child in that moment.
I did the same thing at a skating rink. Because she was like, well, if you spill it, people are going to wipe out. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, well, I'm not going to spill it. And she's like, how do you know?
Yeah.
Um,
But that's my defense mechanism because I was never allowed to take anything anywhere when I was a kid. It was always just an assumption being made about me. You can't have that. You can't have that. So I went back out to my car and I put it in. I was like, well, now I have to drink your dirty tap water. That's what I don't drink tap water. So that's usually why I'm pretty mad about it. And she's like, well, we sell bottles of water. And I'm like, that's not the point. But I had to come back later and I looked at her and I was like, I apologize for acting like a child earlier. And she's like, I get it, it's fine. I'm just like, but like we just have these reactions for whatever reason. And then it's just like, how do you now resolve that? How do you take responsibility and apologize and stop being a child?
right.
So, unraveling quickly from stress, disappointments, and trials, interpret disagreements as personal offenses. This is one I hear all the time. Um, this happened a lot in my marriage, like even playing games. You're doing this on purpose. And I'd have to be like, yeah, I am. Like it's a game. Like I'm
Yeah.
trying to win just as much as you are. Like why are you screaming at me about a card game?
Yeah.
Emotional children. They're easily hurt, complain, withdraw, manipulate, take revenge, become sarcastic. I'm telling you right now, if you sarcasm, like these dating profiles I see, and they're like, sarcasm is my second language. Emotional child.
Yeah.
If you are dating anybody whatsoever and they're sarcastic about everything, they are emotional children.
Mm-hmm.
They will not know how to communicate you in a hurt, scared, serious conversation you're trying to have.
Yeah.
They'll make it a joke like children do. That is your first red flag. Any dating profile I see that says, and you gotta love my sarcasm, I'm like, you are going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's just so
It's
like
going through a roundabout
yeah.
constantly.
At first it's funny and you're like, ha ha ha. Long term,
Detrimental.
you will become bitter. You will become confused. You will be manipulated. You will be hateful. You will be looking for other people to conversate and hang out with because sarcasm is like the root. I mean, the root of all sarcasm is truth. But I don't know how to speak the truth respectfully, calmly.
Yeah.
So I make a joke about it and hope you understand the pun that was intended. So I don't deal with sarcastic people. Like I don't get into relationships with people that are very sarcastic. And they have great difficulty calmly discussing their needs and wants in a mature and loving way. And if that is you, the best thing that you can do is take a deep breath, get in your journal, write down what's really going on, and ask yourself, what is it that I need right now? Your needs are aligned with your values. If you do not know what your values are, your core values, you're never going to know how to get your needs met. Figure out what your values are. That will help you understand what your needs are. That will make communicating and interacting your interpersonal relationships a lot more effective. Emotional adolescents, they tend to be defensive. We all are.
Like teenagers.
I think a lot of us are in this context. They are threatened and alarmed by criticism as if everybody's supposed to like you all the time.
That's good. Yeah.
They keep score of what they give so they can ask for something later in return. These are called transactional relationships. I do for you, you do for me. Well, if I do this for them, then they'll owe me something in the future. I used to have a really bad mentality of that. I grew up in a transactional home. They transactioned, I would give you love if you do this task for me. And I think a lot of us subconsciously do this. If you love me, you'll come give me a hug. If you love me, you'll go do the dishes. And we're teaching that love is transactional. I only get your love if I do these things. Stop doing that. Stop saying things like that. It is so damaging to a child. Don't talk to your children that way. Stop keeping score. And that's in partnerships a lot too. We deal with conflict poorly, often blaming, appeasing, going to a third party, pouting, or ignoring the issue entirely. All my conflict avoidance. You're an emotional adolescent if you're doing this. People who are peacekeepers, you're an emotional adolescent. Keeping the peace is not resolving the problem.
It's delaying it and complicating it.
Yeah.
It just gets bigger.
They often become preoccupied with themselves. They have great difficulty truly listening to another person's pain, disappointments, or needs. And they're critical and judgmental.
Yeah.
So, are you an emotional adolescent? And I think a lot of us, when you get to our age, usually like with Maslow's hierarchy of needs and Eric Erickson's psychosocial stages of development, as we get older, we're supposed to, I think, inherently learn this stuff, but a lot of times we don't. So it is your responsibility to grow into an emotionally mature adult. It's not everybody else's responsibility. It's not anybody else's job to do this for you or to teach you how. You can read, pick up a book, ask questions, find a therapist, work through this stuff, talk to people about it, journal about it, teach yourself, learn these things, and then put them into practice. So, emotional adults, this is what everybody's been waiting for. How to tell if you're an emotional adult, or these are goals that I would write down to try to achieve, to work towards. Emotional adults are able to ask for what they need, want, or prefer clearly, directly, and honestly. They're also able to recognize, manage, and take responsibility for their own thoughts and feelings. This is what I'm thinking. This is how I'm feeling. It's not you're making me feel this way and you're thinking this. It's your fault that I'm doing this. That's blaming. They can, when under stress, state their own beliefs and values without becoming adversarial. I love watching Charlie Kirk's debates because they always become defensive, adversarial. Like they're there to be like, I'm gonna prove you wrong. And that's not what a debate is about. A debate is to say, this is the information I'm bringing to the table. What is the information you're bringing to the table? This is really where we're coming from. I remember we went to this marriage retreat years ago, and I didn't remember like what the assessment was, but there were like the four lands that you live in, and there was like fun land, peacekeeper land, control land, and I never can remember the fourth one. But there's these four lands, and there was probably 100 and something people in the that were there doing this retreat, and we all broke up into our lands, and there was like 8 of us in the control land. I was in the control land, and there was like 80 people 50 people, whatever, in the fun land and in the peacekeeper land and in these other places. So the majority of people are over here, and then there was like 8 of us in this control group. And the purpose of the activity was to help the other people in the other places understand your differences and why you do the things that you do. And we had to write down things that we wish people knew about us. And being people in the control land, we're looked at and like, oh, you just want to control everything. You control freaks. And, no, you just don't ever want to have fun and all of these things. And the control group was very much so looked down upon. and everybody's responses to the things that we said about like what we wish people knew, like we try to control things because I think the majority of us agreed that the reason behind us wanting to control things is so that everybody else has like the best outcome. Like we want you to be happy, we want this to be at peace, we want like it's to be serving to others, we want to be very much so in control of what we're doing. And every time we would say anything about what we wish people knew about us, somebody would scoff, somebody would roll their eyes, somebody would be like, oh, yeah, I'm sure. Emotional children. Those of us in the control land learned how to grow up real quick and become mature adults.
True story.
So it's just like learning to see and understand that people are different from you. They process information differently. They like things that are different from you. They do things differently than you. And it doesn't mean that your way is better than their way. It's just different. Now, sometimes, which you and I do this a lot, I'm like, there's an easier way to do that. Would you like to know? And that's okay, but get their permission first. Like, do you always do things like that? You're like, yeah. And I'm like, have you tried it this way?
Which is helpful because and if it's especially if it's a new process for me, I kind of sometimes I just have to go through the chaos. And if I'm by myself and I don't have
Yeah.
someone being like, there is a simpler way to do this. And then after I've gone through it, I rethink it and I'm like, oh, okay, now maybe next time I'll do it X, Y, and Z. But it is the long way around. And that's been my brain my entire life. But I mean, that can be beneficial. And I think that's the other thing too. Something I had to learn was to be open to receiving that suggestion, to be open to receiving another person's viewpoint, to actually consider it, to swallow my pride, especially in my marriage, when I have clearly said or done something where, okay, yeah, that's on me. And I apologize. And like, if you've upset somebody or you've crossed the line in any way, just to be like, okay, I'll do better next time. Like, now I understand what happened.
Yeah.
And that's what grows you. But I think that was the hardest thing. That's how you transition from being an emotional adolescent to an emotional adult, is learning to take accountability for yourself.
Yeah. For
and
sure.
being open to other perspectives. And I think we've had this conversation about love languages too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, it's not about only your love languages and the way that you receive love, but sure, if you want to show other people love, but you have to reach them through their own love language. Like that, that's selflessness.
And that goes to the next point. It says emotional adults can respect others without having to change them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They give people room to make mistakes and not be perfect. including yourself. So if you struggle with perfectionism, you are not emotionally mature. You need to accept that things are not going to be perfect, and sometimes you have a bad day, and other days things don't go the right way, and sometimes your house just needs to be a mess so you can connect with your children instead of telling them to go do something else because you got to clean up this mess. Like,
Yeah.
homes are meant to be messy and lived in. They're not meant
Amen.
to be perfect.
That's one of my favorite signs is please excuse the mess, we're making memories.
Yeah, I
That
love that.
is beautiful.
Um, they appreciate people for who they are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, not for what they give back. So, unless they're giving you back a lot of attitude and abuse, that's again, a different scenario here. They can accurately assess their own limits, strengths, and weaknesses and are able to freely discuss them with others, which means they can ask for help.
Yeah.
So, if you have a hard time asking for help, you might be emotionally immature in some area. So be aware of that. They are deeply in tune with their own emotional world and are able to enter into the feelings, needs, and concerns of others without losing themselves. So if you're an empath, that's emotional immaturity. You cannot separate and distinguish your feelings from another's. Empathy is the action. Is it an action? Yeah,
The skill. Yeah.
the skill
Mm-hmm.
of understanding what another person is feeling because of what they're going through and not trying to change it or control it or minimize it or blow it out of proportion. But you equally don't carry it as your own responsibility to fix. That is codependency. So be in tune with your own emotional world so you are able to empathize and enter into the feelings, needs, and concerns of others without losing yourself. And then the last one is they have the capacity to resolve conflict maturely and negotiate solutions that consider the perspectives of others. So again, it goes back to this is a us, we, not me versus you.
Mm-hmm.
It is you and I, both of us together. Where do we compromise in this situation, in this scenario? How can I get what I'm needing met, and how can you get what you're needing met? And if we can't get our needs met because neither one of us are willing to budge, then you're going to have to agree to disagree about some things sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think
So
at the end of the day, too, though, that there's always sometimes you have to explore that third option. You know, maybe if your idea is this, mine said this, and then what if we tried it this way? That's what us looks like. You know, what if we just changed it from how we're both used to doing something? Would that work? You know,
I think a lot of times it's more important to say, okay, let's try it your way first, and then let's do it my way, and we'll see which way we liked better.
mm-hmm.
Or sometimes it's then you're going to have to do it that way by yourself because
Right.
I'm not capable of doing it that way, or I'm not there.
It might just be, yeah, and it might just be the day. Like maybe it's just
Mm-hmm.
if this is what you need and this is what I need, let's just go do it, and I'll meet you back in like 3 hours or whatever the time frame is. And sometimes, and I mean, I think a lot of for myself when especially at home, as much as I love being around my husband, sometimes it's just like, you know what, I just need to chill for a while, and I haven't had any like creative rest or any time to myself, and I'm just going to go do this thing, and I'll see you again in a little bit, and then we enjoy each other's company so much more.
Yeah.
And I think that's respecting who you are as an individual. And I think this is where I got lost early on in my marriage, was that because we're married now, we do everything together. It's us and it's this partnership. But yes, but you can also lose yourself pretty easily if you don't maintain yourself.
Well, you have differences,
Yeah.
two people who come together that have all of the same likes, and like that's so rare.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us have, like I like to go paddleboarding and you would rather go play pickleball.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to compromise. So this weekend we'll do the pickleball. Next weekend I want to go paddleboarding.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's, do you have people you can go play pickleball with? Then you go do that. I'm going to go paddleboard.
Yeah.
There's always an alternative, an additional solution. But if you're problem focused, you're never going to get there. So you have to be solution focused.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference between being problem focused and solution focused is when you're arguing about the problem, you're problem focused.
Mhm.
If you're arguing about the solution, that argument's going to lead to change and eventually an agreed upon place that you're going, and you'll feel better. Don't stay stuck on the problem. Know what the problem is, identify what the problem is. You want to do your thing, I want to do my thing. We only have 6 hours in the day to get this done. So, how can we compromise to where maybe we can get both of those things done, but then also this part, this quality time we're going to spend together? So, pay attention to how often you are the one that's trying to always get your needs met, or if you're willing to say, yeah, I really wanted to do that, but it was kind of last minute. And I know you've been planning or thinking about this all day, so I'll sacrifice that. Let's go do your thing.
Yep. Yep.
But when you're in a relationship with a very emotionally immature infant child, um, I know with my ex, I had to tell him, listen, there are 52 weekends in a year. You get 26. I get 26. Every weekend doesn't revolve around just doing everything that you want. There are times when I'm going to need to do things and you'll need to go do your own thing. So eh, we got to figure it out. Sometimes I'll sacrifice. I usually will have couples who struggle with this write down, like, I don't know, 50 things that they want to do with their partner. And I say, put them in your jars, put them on a piece of paper, fold them up, put them in your jar. And every other weekend, your partner gets to pick from your jar. So I will do whatever's on your jar. There's also the adventure, there's an adventure like dating, it's like a scratch off book. Those are fun things to experience together. Like, we're not going to do what you want or what I want. We're going to learn how to do something new together.
Mhm.
So sometimes that's what you got to do. But work with each other. Maybe only 25 things, since there's only 25 weekends that you get. And some weekends you're just going to have to do what other people need.
Yeah.
But
Yep. You can keep that you can maintain that. And sometimes, you might be sick all weekend, or you might, there might be some,
external uncontrolled
right.
circumstances do come up.
So be flexible.
Learning to be adaptable to that change.
Yeah.
Yes. So, the spiritual discipline of practicing the presence of people. As emotionally mature Christian adults, we recognize that loving well is the essence of true spirituality. This requires that we experience connection with God, with ourselves, and with other people. God invites us to practice His presence in our daily lives. At the same time, He invites us to practice the presence of people within an awareness of His presence in our daily relationships. The two are rarely brought together. So it says, Jesus' profound contemplative prayer life with his Father resulted in a contemplative presence with people. He saw every person he met as someone new who never existed before, something original and unique. In fact, this ability to pay attention and really listen to people was at the very heart of his mission. It could not help but move him to compassion. In the same way, out of our contemplative time with God, we too are invited to be prayerfully present to people, revealing their beauty to themselves.
Mhm. I was just imagining, I was reading a little bit of that this morning. I was just imagining what it would be like just to meet Jesus on the street, to just stroll up to him and see what he would say about me, you know? And that's an awesome feeling, to just know that someone's paying attention that much, and how many things he has said about other people he's just come across in the Bible. And like Zacchaeus, get down from that tree. We're going to your house. We're going to go have lunch, or
Mm-hmm.
the woman at the well, just how he would just stroll up to people and just know them.
Well, he met people where they were at,
Yeah, he
and
did.
he knew them, maybe because he's God, obviously, but he didn't pretend or act like he knew people.
Right.
He let them show him who they were.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we could probably all learn a thing or two from that.
For sure.
So Jesus refused to separate the practice of the presence of God from the practice of the presence of people. When pushed to the wall to separate this unbreakable union, Jesus refused. He summarized the entire Bible for us. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All of the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments.
Mm-hmm.
So, love people. How can you love somebody today? How can you choose to step outside your comfort zone and show up for somebody, that coworker who just always knows how to get under your skin? They always say something and you just want to pop off at them. Try offering a compliment today,
Or bring them a muffin.
or bring them a muffin or a coffee
Mm-hmm.
or a book or
Mm-hmm.
anything that says, I surrender. I just
Mm-hmm.
want to, I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to get into this. I'm not going to let it into me anymore. You kill people with kindness.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
love your neighbor. You don't know what they're going through and you have no idea what they've been through. And I know that my high school experience was vastly different from the majority of people's because nobody knew the trauma that I went through. They all just assumed I was this person because of, I was just, who knows what they thought of me. I don't know. But I was treated as if I was like an evil person and I was purposely going around trying to hurt people. And I didn't. Like, I remember one of my best friends from middle school, Melanie, um, she dated a boy in high school who she's with now. And when I talked to him at her baby shower, he said to me, I always thought everybody always said that you were such a bitch in high school. I always thought you were like, I would see you from a distance and be like, oh, stay away from her. And he was like, and there was one time after school, um, I don't remember what he said, if he locked his keys in the car or he lost something somewhere or whatever it was. And he was like, you were the first person that you were like, here, let me help you. What do you need? And he was like, I don't know why everybody thinks she's so mean. um, but people will say things about you that aren't true.
Yeah.
And I was the kid that when I heard so many people say things about me that weren't true, I started to believe them. Maybe I am evil. Maybe I am this. Maybe I am this other thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start to believe that way, you start to behave that way because your body and your actions follow your mind. So you have to change what you believe about yourself if you want to change how you interact with people. And you have to forgive and let that stuff go. So here are some things that you can do to help you overcome this emotional immaturity. Number one, stop looking at relationships in an I it relationships treat people uh, in dehumanizing way, objectifying ways. Um, so in 1923, the great Jewish theologian Martin Buber
Cover?
wrote a brilliant but difficult to read book called I and Thou. Buber described the most healthy or mature relationship possible between two human beings as an I thou relationship. In such a relationship, I recognize that I am made in the image of God, and so is every other person on the face of the earth. This makes them a thou to me. Because of that reality, every person deserves respect. That is, I treat them with dignity and worth. I do not dehumanize or objectify them. I affirm them as having a unique and separate existence apart from me. Though you are different from me, a you or thou, I still respect, love, and value you. Buber argued that in most of our human relationships, we lose sight of others as separate from us. We treat people as objects, as an it. In the I-it relationship, I treat you as a means to an end, as we might use a toothbrush or a car. So what might this look like? I walk in and dump my work on my secretary without saying hello. I move people around on an organizational chart at a staff meeting as if they were objects or subhuman. I talk about people in authority as if they were subhuman. I treat Jerry or our children, his wife and kids, as if they are not in charge of their own freedom, dreams, and autonomy. I expect them to be the picture I have of them in my head. I am threatened when someone disagrees with my political views. I listen to my neighbors' problems and help them with chores around their house, hoping they will attend the Christmas outreach at our church. They don't, and I move on to someone else. The result of I-it relationships is that I get frustrated when people don't fit into my plans. The way I see things is right, and if you don't see it as I do, you are not seeing things the right way. You are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I-thou relationships, true relationships, says Buber, can only exist between two people willing to connect across their differences. God fills that in between space of an I thou relationship. God not only can be glimpsed in genuine dialogue, but penetrates their in between space. The central tenet of Buber's life work was that the I thou relationship between persons intimately reflects the I thou relationship humans have with God. The end result was an isolation and cult. Oh, that was from a different. They're talking about the example, and I didn't read that, so we're not going to do that part. So, I thou. This is all over the internet. You can practice this scrolling through social media. People are at war with each other. You think that way, I think this way, you're an idiot. You're this, you're that, you're disgraceful, you're all of these things that I call you. Guess what that says about you? You are emotionally immature. Because if you cannot speak to somebody with dignity and respect who thinks and behaves differently than you, you're the problem, not them. Work on yourselves. We all do this. We all struggle with this. And a lot of it comes from a trauma response.
And I
So,
think it's also, I was thinking about this morning because the question was like, in what ways do you treat people as an it? And definitely social media is a big one.
mhm.
However, driving is another one for me, where, someone cuts you off in traffic, blah, 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 and you just go around them like it's not another human. Um, Cashiers, servers. I've really tried to be mindful of whoever is bringing me food or ringing up my order to be gracious to them because I don't think they get a lot of that.
I was a server for a very, very long time.
So maybe you can verify that.
Oh
but-
yeah, no, people are super rude to servers. You didn't bring my food out right. The cook made a mistake. Like, I mean, people are ruthless. Like, come on. We're still human beings. We still make mistakes. I'm sorry your sweet tea isn't sweet enough.
But I'm a robot that prepares food.
Yes. Like, do you treat your family? I guarantee if they're treating their server that way, they treat their family that way. So how you treat people in the public eye is oftentimes, well, unless you're a manipulator. Most manipulators treat people in the public eye way better than they treat people at home. So it's keeping that in mind as well. But yeah,
And
I think it should be mandatory that everybody work in the service industry at some point in their life.
to be on the other side of that counter.
So you understand what it likes to be the person who's constantly serving and being rejected over and over, or criticized or insulted. Now, granted, there are times when servers mistreat you.
Right.
And it's still treating them like a human being. Maybe you just don't leave as much of a tip.
And I think there's also times when, if you're really tuned into it, I've noticed when my server comes to me and they've obviously had a very long, hard day, something has gone on. Maybe the table before us was really rude. And I remember in particular one time she was just kind of checked out, and I just thought the Lord was like, leave her a good tip. Leave her a good tip, even though she's really not engaging a lot. And we did, and we left. And the next time we came back, she was our server. She was lit up. Like, she was just so glad to see us. And I just felt like she didn't feel appreciated. And I've been there, and it was just, and now every time we see her, we go to the same restaurant, and Cracker Barrel is our date night. But I look forward to interacting with her. I know we're old.
It's not old. I think Cracker Barrel's food sucks. I can't stand their food, but there's like, but I love their shopping center out front. Like, I'll go walk through and buy stuff, but
their breakfast is
every time I've eaten there, I've not liked my food. So
in the beginning,
it's a personal preference.
Oh no, I get it. But yeah, there was actually, we had to stop being asked to, we asked to not be seated in a certain section of the restaurant because it was right around the corner from a server station. And they would be in such a hurry that every time they would put the drinks on the little tray, they would come around that corner and it would go whoop 3 times in a row. It ended up in my lap.
Dang.
Yeah, cold. And I was like, oh, well, I'm awake now. So
did they pay for your food?
No, we got free drinks, but
free drinks.
You're gonna be what they did.
Paying for my meal and drop a whole tray of drinks in my lap.
It was on the house, but I was like, you know what? I'd rather pay for my meal this time than have wet pants. So
yeah,
ice glasses and everything.
Okay, so the goal of emotional maturity, or the solution to growing into emotional maturity is changing your mindset to be an I thou mindset, looking at people as human beings, seeing them as the unique, loving, intricate, purpose filled, idiosyncratic person that God created them to be.
They are.
That changes you. Even if they're awful and they treat you awful and they treat people awful,
Something has gone.
don't become the thing you hate.
Right.
That's a principle. Keep that in mind. A principle I'll be writing about probably in my dissertation. We become what we hate. So, practicing the I thou in our relationships leads to another aspect of emotional maturity. It informs our capacity to resolve conflicts maturely and negotiate solutions as we consider other people's perspectives. At the heart of true peacemaking is acknowledgement, once again, that we are human beings made in God's image. Likeness to our Creator, along with Christ's example, puts us on paths that desire to live in the truth and not in pretense, even when that means a conflict may result.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I can encourage anybody who's conflict avoidant, you got to start looking at conflict as correction, like a way to, like,
Result.
well, it's to understand our
Mhm.
differences. That's just what conflict is. It's a necessary part of life. Like, you're never going to be not have conflict. People are always going to think differently from each other. So to be afraid of that is going to leave you stuck in a place of emotional immaturity.
Yeah.
So it's okay. My mom used to always tell me, it's like you just love conflict. And I'm like, I don't love it. Nobody loves arguing with people. Well, maybe some people do. They enjoy it or they're better at it. Lawyers. But I'm not afraid of conflict. Like, I'm not afraid to think and be different from other people because I really genuinely want to understand why you think and are the way that you are. Because there are times that I'm like, well, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe I should consider an alternative perspective.
And there's a way to do it that isn't attacking. There's
Mhm.
a way to do it that is just have a conversation and
Ask questions.
ask those questions. Like, and what was it that we were talking about? What are your you and I were having this conversation. What are your assumptions at this point? Remember, if you're walking into a situation and there are certain things you're assuming that are going to happen.
Oh, yeah. When you're like, well, if I have this conversation, this is how they're going to react. And I'm like, you don't know that. Like, they might have reacted that way before, but if people change, you never know what people are doing inside of themselves, especially if they're on like a healing growth journey.
Mhm.
And regardless of whether they changed or not, you don't have the right to take the autonomy from anybody. You don't.
Amen.
And if you're going to remain in a relationship with somebody that you're always making assumptions of, you're going to destroy that relationship yourself.
Yeah.
You have to give them the opportunity to speak for themselves,
Right.
just as much as you want the opportunity to speak for yourself.
Right.
So all the things that you want for you, you have to be willing to give to other people. Otherwise, you're self-centered and you're emotionally immature and you have your own stuff.
Yeah.
Traits of narcissism.
And if you're acting out of fear, just for myself, I always have to remember if you're following a godly path and you're being obedient and you're fearing people, you're not fearing God. You're putting them above God. So at the end of the day, that's made some of my hardest choices for me is just being like, if I am afraid of people, I have my answer. I need to be honoring what Jesus says to do. And that has never led me wrong. Is it tough? But yeah.
Well, it also comes down to really asking yourself why you care so much about what people think of you.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, the root of that is you don't know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, you need everybody to like you so you don't have to actually explore that.
Yeah. And I definitely have had to ask myself that question many times. And I know it goes back to a lot of my trauma, fear of abandonment or.
What's your values? You don't know what your values are.
Right.
You're making decisions based upon how you feel and how other people feel, which means you're not being true to your values. Those are your needs.
And they're okay and they're important to honor because if you are just honoring your own genuine, morals and values and things that make you who you are, later on, there's a temporary discomfort, and then there's the down the line explosive discomfort, and it's because you've neglected who you are in Christ.
Yeah. Know who you are. All right. So if you are ignoring conflicts, you are false peacemaking.
Mm-hmm.
A tragically misinterpreted verse in the New Testament is Jesus' proclamation, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." Most people think that Jesus calls us in this verse to be pacifiers and appeasers who ensure that nobody gets upset.
Mm-hmm.
We are to keep the peace, ignoring difficult issues and problems, making sure things remain stable and serene. When out of fear, we avoid conflict and appease people, we are false peacemakers. For example, Carl is upset about the behavior of his spouse who constantly comes home late after work. He says nothing. Why? He thinks he is being like Christ by not saying anything, although he does give her a cold shoulder. He is a false peacemaker. Pam disagrees with her coworkers at lunch when they slander her boss. She is afraid to speak up. She goes along. I don't want to kill the atmosphere by speaking up and disagreeing, she thinks. She is a false peacemaker. Bob goes to dinner with 10 other people. He is tight financially, so he orders only a salad and appetizer. Meanwhile, the other 9 order appetizer, steak, wine, and desserts. When the bill comes, someone says, let's divide up the bill equally. It will take forever to figure it out. Everyone agrees. Bob is dying on the inside but won't say anything. He is a false peacemaker. Yolanda is engaged. She would like more time to rethink her decision, but is afraid that her fiance and his family will get angry. She goes through with the wedding. She is a false peacemaker. That was me. I did that. I knew I was not supposed to go through with that, and I felt so, I was guilt tripped into basically doing it.
I feel like there's probably a lot of women out there who have
Ugh,
so many.
so many. Ellen loves her parents. They are both quite critical about how she raises her children. Each holiday is filled with tension. Ellen doesn't say anything because she doesn't want to hurt their feelings. She is a false peacemaker. So I do this work with my clients more than anything else, is not being false peacemakers. Like, you got to address the thing. Here's how you say it in a respectful and a kind. You're going to mess up, but like, we work, this is what the majority of our interpersonal kind of therapeutic work is. And so many clients have come back to me who had like controlling or like manipulative parents or people in their family. And they're like, so I've been practicing this thing that we've been working through. I'm setting boundaries and following through with them and all of that. And all of the people tell me that I have a terrible therapist and I need to fire you.
It's because they don't like how you're changing.
And I'm like, well, how do you feel about that? And they're like, well, I have a very peaceful state of mind at home now. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And I'm like, well, you can send them to me if you want. I'll help them understand. But it's just so funny because when you start setting boundaries, when you stop living a false peace life, walking on eggshells, trying to avoid conflict, conflict arises, but it's so short term. It's usually within about 3 to 4 months. Everybody starts to catch on, and now they start to see how you're speaking up and they start to do it. And they're like, maybe I should go to therapy. Maybe I should learn. Just go with it. It gets harder before it gets better.
Yeah.
But the better this time is actual true peace, peacemaking. Sharing thinks her boyfriend is irresponsible but feels bad for him. He has had so much pain already in his life, she thinks, how can I add to that? So she backs down from telling him the truth about the way his behavior is slowly killing their relationship. The relationship dies a slow death. She is a false peacemaker. The problem with all of these scenarios is that the way of true peace will never come through pretending what is wrong is right. True peacemakers love God, others, and themselves enough to disrupt false peace. And Jesus models this for us. So,
Speaking to my life currently, just things I'm dealing with, and I think that's
well, I
good.
think you're also taking enough time to like really process and think through it before you just make an emotional, irrational, maybe decision. But
Yeah.
my mom raised us and she said, anytime conflict arises or like a difficult decision or something comes up, She said, "Don't make a decision until you feel a peace about it.
Yeah.
If there's no peace, don't make the decision. When there
And
is a peace, then you know."
yeah. And I think and then I think the next step after that, once you find that peace, is to find that courage too. I mean, you'll have peace, but it's probably going to take a strong back.
I don't think you can have the peace without the courage first,
True.
because
True.
it takes vulnerability, which builds courage, and it's vulnerability to take the risk of disrupting our relationship because I might say something you don't like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had a best friend. I've had many of them. But we had very different opinions about antidepressants. And I did this whole research article. I watched these videos. I had to write a paper about it, honestly. Not by choice, but because it was the assignment and the side that I had to argue, the debate, because it was about debating. And I found all this information about antidepressants and how long term chronic use of them causes more problems than it does benefit. And she was somebody who had been on antidepressants for a very long time. And because we had a disagreement in that belief system, she stopped being my friend.
Mm.
So I was just like, wow, okay, so I can't even think different. If I can't think differently than you, then I don't want to be your friend.
Right.
If you can't think differently than me, then you shouldn't want to be my friend.
Yeah.
We tend to flock to people who think and act and do everything just like us.
Yeah.
What if what you guys are doing is not helpful? What if it's killing you? What if it's causing problems that you're unaware of?
Hmm.
You don't want to hear the other side.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. It is what it is. I should hang that in the background somewhere.
Yeah. She has
The
the
big
sign on her
flashing
desk right here.
neon sign. It is what it
Is what
is.
it
It is what
is.
it is. I'll put that in my rear view mirror on my car.
That's smart. Yeah.
So, embracing conflict is the path to true peace. Conflict and trouble were central to the mission of Jesus. He disrupted the false peace all around him in the lives of his disciples, the crowds, the religious leaders, the Romans, those buying and selling in the temple. He taught that true peacemaking disrupts false peace even in families. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Matthew 10:34 through 36. Why? You can't have the true peace of Christ's kingdom with lies and pretense. They must be exposed to the light and replaced with the truth. This is the mature, loving thing to do. Nonetheless, unresolved conflicts are one of the greatest tensions in Christians' lives today. Most of us hate them. We don't know what to do with them. Instead of risking any more broken relationships, we prefer to ignore the difficult issues and settle for a false peace, hoping against hope they will somehow go away. They don't. And we all learn sooner or later that you can't build Christ's kingdom on lies and pretense. Only the truth will do. So, number one, to overcome this, speaking and listening. Listening means asking questions. So let me understand. Let me see if I understand. So are you upset about this? Is this what you're trying to say? It sounds like this is how you're feeling. I'm not bringing my own stuff into it. Well, I said that because of this, and you're misunderstanding. I don't get defensive.
Hmm.
I reflect back. So what I'm hearing you say is this. Am I correct? Let them correct you if your interpretation is incorrect.
Yeah.
Until you get to a place where you're in agreement. Once you validate another person's emotions, their brain turns back on and they can think clearly and logically again.
Yeah.
That is the time where you can say, okay, are you open to me explaining myself?
Mhm.
Because I totally understand why you felt that way. And I feel bad that I said it in the way that I said it. And this is really where I was coming from. Or it's, this is just my temperament and I tend to be da 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 da. Like I'm a very loud and direct person. So if I'm too direct in some ways, like you tell me that all the time, where I'm like, maybe I was too direct. And you're like, no, 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 I need to hear that. But I'm aware of it now.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. And
so
I mean, that's also something that I have had to humble myself too. But I also sometimes I'm that type of person where if you don't, and I think this makes people really uncomfortable sometimes. I've noticed over the course of my life, if you don't tell me something directly, I'm not going to get it. I don't understand social cues or I miss like the subtle hints on stuff. I'm like, if something's really wrong, you just need to be like, Laura. And I don't take offense to that because I'm
Mhm.
like, oh.
Yeah.
um, but I know that not everyone is like that. And I, I try to be sensitive to that fact too. But I think that's where I've learned also to ask questions
Yeah.
because if someone, I can pick up on the subtlety of things, but I don't know what you're trying to tell me.
Like when we were playing cards at my sister's house the other night,
Yeah.
and she's sitting there just holding her cards, and I'm like, "Are you gonna go?" And she was like, "I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing."
I really was
And I'm like,
lost.
"You do you play cards?"
No.
No. And I was like, "Oh my God." But I had an epiphany moment. I was like, if you learned how to play cards, a lot of the things that you struggle with, I'm like, this helps build your focus
Hmm.
and it speeds things up. So you start to connect hand, head to like what you're doing, which means you start paying attention, like your peripherals start to pay attention to the senses. It's not just,
And like thinking forward into the future, what's my next
mm-hmm.
move? And that's going to be really helpful if we work on that this summer because I have to write a very big
Yeah,
dissertation
you
this
do.
fall. So, I mean, not to just make it about me, but yeah, that's one of those things too, why it's so important to be open to other people's suggestions because and I also have learned over time to just okay, is there any truth to what someone is saying? Is this a helpful information or, where are they coming from with this? And most of the time, yeah, 95% of the time, because of who I choose to surround myself with, it's helpful,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's just what's so important that's why it's important to get to know people too, but it's important to be open to those things and to just not assume that where someone's coming from. Get all the information you can before you make a final conclusion.
Absolutely. So ways to do this. As the speaker, you talk about your own thoughts and your own feelings using I statements. You be brief, use short sentences or phrases. Correct the other person if you believe he or she has missed something. Continue speaking until you feel you've been understood. And when you don't have anything else to say, tell them that's all for now. As the listener, you put your own agenda on hold. That's the most important thing. Be quiet and still as you would before God. Allow the other person to speak until he or she completes a thought. Reflect accurately the other person's words back to him or her. You have two options: paraphrase in a way the other person agrees is accurate, or use his or her own words. That's called parroting. When it appears the speaker is done, ask, is there more? And when they are done, ask them, of everything you have shared, what is the most important thing you want me to remember?
Mm, that's so good.
The purpose of repeating back what the other person says is to be sure you are hearing them accurately. This requires you as the listener to put your ideas and responses on hold. Validate the other person, letting them know that you really see and understand his or her world and point of view. You recognize they are different. Typical validation phrases might include that makes sense, or I can see that because, or I can understand that because.
Something I had to teach myself to do because my mind likes to go straight to my response instead of listening. Oh, real bad about that. Is I would keep, like you were saying with your ex when you were taking notes, I would keep paper and a pen. And if I'm in a conversation or a work meeting that it doesn't even have to be negatively, um, connotated. It's just, I have something to say and that impulse is there. I write it down.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because I'm so afraid I'm going to forget. And then
Do you know how you overcome that? I'm interrupting you.
oh, go ahead. Go
If
for it.
you are afraid that you're going to forget what you have to say, it's probably not that important. Because if it was important, you would remember it.
Well, and I'm kind of on the flip side of that because as someone who has struggled with short-term memory problems, that's one of my issues. I have forgotten things that I need to say in conversation, and but I've also found that if I write it down, and you're absolutely right, there are some times where I'm just like, okay, this is really irrelevant.
Or a lot of times they'll actually answer the question.
Right.
If you let them finish speaking,
Yeah.
you'll get that answer without having to interrupt them.
And there's been times too where if it's like a comeback or it's an argument, I have been, I have waited in the quiet and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I didn't say this thing.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
let me correct myself. When I say it's probably not important that you say that right then and there, I'm referring to when you feel defensive in an argument.
Yeah.
That's usually, and I had ADHD, like those symptoms.
Mhm.
And the Lord told me, He said, if it's important, the Holy Spirit brings to remembrance all that is forgotten. And that might not be the moment you need to be saying that thing. And if it is important, it will come back at a later time. And that might be a more appropriate time to bring it up.
It's one of those
But
things
it
that
helps you get past the impulse, I think.
it does. And if it's a heart comment, if it's something that the Lord says, no, this is on your heart, I'm not going to let you forget it, you're going to speak it, it'll stay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where I've had to train, because my brain and my heart don't always connect. And my brain's like, no, everything that I say, you have to say out loud. And that's just not the case.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And it's hard to train. I mean, you have to train your head to connect to your heart.
yeah.
And heart, just because I get this a lot where they're like, well, I know this, but I don't like I don't feel it. Like it's not in my heart. If you want to go from knowledge to heart knowledge, this happens through action. You have to experience it. Once you experience something, it becomes head and heart knowledge. But if it's just up here cerebral, like that might all be incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
experience, which is having the difficult conversation, work through the thing, put yourself in that vulnerable place.
Yep.
Number 2, he says, have a bill of rights. So this I would say is called household responsibilities. Respect is not a feeling. It is how we treat one another. Regardless of how we might feel about another human being, they are made in God's image and of infinite value and worth. So the Bill of Rights is what respect means. So he said space and privacy, being different, disagreeing, being heard, being taken seriously, being given the benefit of the doubt, being told the truth, being consulted, being imperfect and making mistakes, and courteous and honorable treatment, and being respected, taking another person's feelings into account. So when you have a home full of people that think differently, have different upbringings, different experiences, different values, those households, like you have to have these conversations. You need to know what, like, if be respectful, what does that mean?
Right.
What does being respectful mean to you? Because in my household, being respectful means saying the hard thing,
Mm-hmm.
bringing it up.
Yeah.
You just don't do it when you're screaming at the person or insulting them and criticizing them. But you have to bring it up. Some people think being respectful means you don't say anything unless I give you permission to. That's not respect. So you guys have to understand like what these words mean when you're like, well, in this household, I remember when I started going to this new church, we went to the membership meeting, and their number one value was authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what does authenticity mean? And the pastor was like, well, um, what I think it means. And so it's like, what is your definition of authenticity? Because that's my number one core value. And if our understanding of this word is different, we need to have a conversation about that. So we're on the same page and I can see where you're coming from and where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
People who don't want to compromise are people who will not let you share your perspective.
Right.
No, you're just going to, this is what it means. Well, I disagree. And then you have a choice to make. Do I want to walk into that and be a part of it? Or do I want to maybe look elsewhere or say, no, I don't think so, because we disagree about what that means.
And think something else I've learned about respect is that you don't have to understand why that person wants that thing.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to respect it, because at the end of the day, it's what is best. Do you love that person? Do you care about their well-being? Yes. If this is something you truly need, I'm going to give you that.
Yeah. Number 3, stop mind reading. We talked about this a little bit earlier.
Oh my gosh, girl, yes.
The 9th commandment reads, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. To check out assumptions, or stop mind reading, as we like to call it, is a very simple but powerful tool that eliminates untold conflicts in relationships. It enables me to check out whether what I'm thinking or feeling about you is true. It enables me to clarify potential misunderstandings. Every time I make an assumption about someone who has hurt or disappointed me without confirming it, I believe a lie about this person in my head. This assumption is misrepresentation of reality. Because I have not checked it out with the other person, it is very possible I am believing something untrue. It is also likely I will pass that false assumption around to others. When we leave reality for a mental creation of our own doing, like our hidden assumptions, we create a counterfeit world. When we do this, it can properly be said that we exclude God from the lives because God does not exist outside of reality and truth. In doing so, we wreck relationships by creating endless confusion and conflict. So, you ask questions you don't mind read. Stop thinking that you know what everybody's thinking. You don't. Number 4 is clarifying your expectations. I did a small video on this earlier this week. Unmet and unclear expectations create havoc in our place of employment, classrooms, friendships, dating relationships, marriages, sports teams, families, and churches. For example, of course you're coming to the family event. We're important to you, aren't we? Guilt tripping. I never knew the job involved all that. You never told me. Victim mindset. My adult son should know I need him to come over and fix things. I shouldn't have to ask. I hear this a lot in relationships. I shouldn't have to ask for that. He should just know. She should just know.
Mind reading and loss of autonomy.
I am disillusioned. I expected that a good marriage just happened naturally. I am the only one caring for my aging parents. My siblings expect me to do everything. All of this is the victim mindset. I'm a victim. I'm a victim. You guys are the bad guys, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Woe is me. So, the problem with most expectations is that they are unconscious, meaning we have expectations we're not even aware of until somebody disappoints us.
Mm-hmm.
They are unrealistic. We may have illusions about others. For example, we think a spouse, friend, or a pastor will be available at all times to meet our needs.
Yeah.
Relationships, a lot that too.
Yeah.
They are unspoken. We may have never told our spouse, friend, or employee what we expect, yet we get angry when our expectations are not met. And they're unagreed upon. We may have had our own thoughts about what was expected, but it was never agreed upon by the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Expectations are only valid when they have been mutually agreed upon. We all know the unpleasant experience of other people having expectations we never agreed to. In order for expectations to be established, they must first be conscious, realistic, spoken, and agreed upon. So sit down with the other person and discuss this, whatever the situation is. Seek to come to a mutually agreed upon expectation. And then I like that he calls triggers allergies. I'm having an allergy to you. You're making me allergic to you. There are certain things I get allergies to. So, an emotional allergy is an intense reaction to something in the present that reminds us consciously or unconsciously of an event from our history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, asking yourself questions about that, like where is this trigger coming from? What am I thinking? What does this remind me of? Is there any evidence to support this thought that I'm having? What is that evidence? If you can't identify it, if the answer is, I don't know, then your emotion is more likely just a reaction. It's not really what's going on. So ask those things.
I think that in learning to be unoffendable, that's one of the other big things I've noticed is that people are so quick to just be like, oh, and just hold up a second.
You're a
like,
blank.
yeah.
If you think that, you're this.
Like we were in Walmart or whatever yesterday. I don't know. I think we bumped into some other guy's cart. Remember that? And he was like,
oh yeah, I was
he
pushing hook
real,
and it grabbed his cart.
And he looked real like stunned by it. And we were just like, sorry. Like
I was like, I'm so sorry. Yeah. I can't even control this cart.
Yeah, and I think that's
I apologize.
And it's one of those things too. If you're really, that's part of being self-aware, I think, is and aware of things around you, that if you're really consumed by whatever is in your mind and then you look up and you have like this intrusive boom, that's going to show who you really are in the moment too. But
he talks about that in this book. When things don't go your way, your true self comes out. Who you really are is presented.
But and if you really tap into that, who do you want to be? Like when those things happen, like that's how you have to train yourself.
Yes. So remember, Jesus formed a community with a small group from Galilee, a backward province in the ancient world. They were neither spiritually nor emotionally mature. Peter, the point leader, had a big problem with his mouth and was a bundle of contradictions. Andrew, his brother, was quiet and behind the scenes. James and John were given the name Sons of Thunder because they were aggressive, hot-headed, ambitious, and intolerant. Philip was skeptical and negative. He had limited vision. "We can't do that," summed up his faith when confronted by the problem of feeding the 5,000. Nathaniel Bartholomew was prejudiced and opinionated. Matthew was the most hated person in Capernaum, working in a profession that abused innocent people. Thomas was melancholy, mildly depressive, and pessimistic. James, son of Alphaeus, and Judas, son of James, were nobodies. The Bible says nothing about them. Simon the Zealot was a freedom fighter and a terrorist in his day. Judas the treasurer was a thief and a loner. He pretended to be loyal to Jesus before finally betraying him. Most of them, however, did have one great quality. They were willing. That is all God asks of us.
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want to pray us out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. I'm aware of how often I treat people as objects, instead of looking at them with the eyes and heart of Christ. I have unhealthy ways of relating that are deeply embedded in me. Please change me. Make me a vessel to spread mature, steady, reliable love, so that people with whom I come in contact sense your tenderness and your kindness. Deliver me from false peacemaking that is driven by fear. And Lord Jesus, help me love well like you. Grow me, I pray, into an emotionally mature adult through the Holy Spirit's power. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So, our challenge for you this week is to practice being emotionally mature. What's something in that list that we talked about, something that we went over today that you know you struggle with? Come up with a goal and a way to start overcoming that. Look at things differently, change your perspective, ask more questions, try to understand where somebody else is coming from before you try to force them to understand where you're coming from, because it's no different.
And
love others well.
Maybe this is something that we can get some feedback on in the I Am Who I Am group. So
Yes.
we could start a little conversation, and at the end of the week, let us know how you practiced it.
And if you're interested in joining our I Am Who I Am group, it's just a group for people who want to be who they are. I am who I am. Like, this is the person that I am, and I'm trying to become my authentic self. I've been through a lot. I want to connect with people who have been through things, who can maybe help me see things outside of my own perspective. I'm always, any questions anybody posts in there, I'm always giving a professional counselor perspective. As if you were my client, these are the things that I would ask you to think about. These are the things that I would encourage you to maybe process through. It is challenging. This isn't a group for people who just want to have somebody pat them on the back and say, yeah, you be mad about that. He's a pig and he's this or she's that. Like, that's not what this is for. This is about your growth into emotional maturity. You are wrong sometimes too. I am wrong. We all mess up. You have to have other people look at things objectively for you who are not involved to help you see outside of your own box. Something to keep in mind too is we have to typically hear something 3 times from 3 different sources before our brain will register that that's important to keep, to hold on to. So a lot of times it's like somebody will be like, oh my gosh, did you know da 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 da? And your first instinct is to go, I've been saying that to you for years.
But I'm so
Coming from the same source over and over again, your brain is like, yeah, we've heard that, we've heard that, we've heard that. But when a second person says it, it's like, wait a minute, where did I hear that before? That sounds familiar. When the third person says it, all of a sudden your brain's like, oh, we've got all of these experiences. I need to look within myself. There might be some truth to this. Yeah. Maybe it isn't everybody else's evil. Maybe I am contributing to my own discomfort in some way. And I'm bringing my own problems into my life, blaming it on everybody else. So be open to hearing things. When you hear things a second or a third time, let that alert go off for you. Excuse me.
Agreed.
And then we have one more chapter in this book. So we'll do that next weekend. And then we're going to start Everyday Narcissism, which is one of my favorite books that I have found. It is so helpful to understand where your victim mindset is coming from through understanding these subtle cues of narcissism. This book, I think, should help everybody understand where your own narcissism is, so you stop pointing the finger at everybody else's narcissism. We attract what we are. If you're attracting all of these narcissistic, angry people, there's something inside of you that is connecting to that energy.
Yeah.
You got to cut those cords. The Lord will direct you. God will show you what that is. You want to have a gentle spirit. So, who are you hanging around? What are things that you're watching, listening to, doing? That's influencing your heart.
Yeah.
Those are your experiences. This is heart knowledge. So, if you don't like something, cut something out of your life for a while. See what changes.
Yeah. Amen.
Otherwise, thanks for listening. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Again, you can check us out at shatteredinto1.com, kind of see where everything is going, what we're doing, who we're helping, what help we need. And if you want to be a part of it, we would love to have you be a part of it.
Thank you so much.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye.